Welcome, everybody. I have a really wonderful experience today that I'm really excited to share with you. ThirdPath couldn't do the work we do without our integrated life advocate community. They are a range of people from HR experts to work-life coaches to just passionate advocates around the ideas that ThirdPath is promoting. And because they've been involved with our work, they've helped us in so many ways. When we run an event, they help us run our breakout groups. They help us run some of our groups that we run virtually. And they are so smart. And so we wanted to feature them today and talk a little about the holidays and how they've really learned a lot about how to make the holidays more joyful and less stressful. And so right now we have Heather Cluley and Susan Sapiro with me. And, you saw in this blog post that we have a little handout that people can use when they look back at their holidays to think about, how can we make our holidays better? And so to start with, I'm talking to Heather a little bit about taking time off on the holidays. Heather, what have you learned about your work patterns and what works best for you and your family on the holidays?
Thanks for asking, Jessica. Well, I work in a unique situation that holidays are really, like we're closed for 2 weeks completely. I'm in a Catholic institution and in an academic setting. So once grades are handed in mid-December, we are really done through the new year. And we were talking about this, Jessica, that whole collective clothing of the organization means that everybody can really unwind and unplug at the same time. And we've also talked in the past about my vacations are never unplugged because the rest of the year, everybody else is still working while I'm on vacation if I take one. And I can't really just walk away from it. So this is the only time of the year that I can really unplug. And that's because everybody else is doing it too. And as a team, we can communicate about monitoring any, trickle of email that does come in and how we'll handle that as a team so that nobody's burdened by it during that time.
Yeah, no, it's really something we at ThirdPath have learned a lot about, and we've been experimenting as an organization as well, partly because of the pandemic. We were also exhausted from getting through the pandemic that we just decided to take that week off. And that was an extra gift I gave to my wonderful staff to say, hey, thank you for making it through the pandemic with me. But we're considering it as a long-term solution at ThirdPath too, because again, just what Heather was talking about, what a difference. And guess what? Ford Motor Company completely turns off between the Christmas week and New Year's as well, because the union fought for it. And so it turns out it's really good for a lot of people to have this coordinated time off, and perhaps even more so today. Interestingly, I'm going to be talking to Susan Sapiro about another thing on the handout, which is gift giving. And these two issues are tied, and we'll come back to that in a little bit because they're tied together because it takes a while to think about how you want to do gift giving. And if you're going to do it, it takes some time to make that happen. And so we're going to share a little bit about Susan and I are going to talk about our gift giving approach. And then we'll circle back to how we can tie it back to time in a second too. So I was going to start first, Susan. I happen to be from a family where we celebrate both Christmas and Hanukkah. And I could tell, because I'm a planner early on, I was like, okay, this is going to be a big problem if I'm not thoughtful about it. In one way, it was a problem because, and this is something Susan, Heather, and I were sharing as shared values, we don't as a family believe in too many gifts. It just feels like it's not really a good way for people to spend their time. Time together as a family was more important for us. And so what we did early on was starting to think about, okay, well, how do we make these special without it being about gift giving? And we got very smart. We started having some patterns that we would repeat each year. So for example, and it turned into a really special thing. One of the Hanukkah nights, my children would make a gift for each other. And we would, when they were very little, Jeff would work with one of the kids and I'd work with the other kid and we'd make a little gift, but really try to let that be the kids' prerogative, what they were going to make. It was always their favorite gift. We also coordinated so that one night was a gift from the grandparents One night was a gift from the aunt. One night was a gift from us. Probably at that point, it was socks and underwear, because really we were just trying to, or pajamas, another great one. But we were really trying to keep it low key on the gift giving. And I liked that a lot. Same with Christmas. We were very low key on Christmas. Susan, when you heard me talk about my trying to figure out Christmas and Hanukkah's situation, I remember you having a funny reaction. Tell me what it was.
Well, so my family is Jewish and we don't celebrate Christmas. So I actually feel very lucky that we don't have the stress of dealing with Christmas because of all of the financial and social expectations that come with it. I just can't imagine having to deal with that at all. But, that being said, Christmas often overlaps with Hanukkah or is often very near the time. And just because of that, there's a lot now in sort of the Jewish media world and Jewish culture about gift giving. So it's very hard to resist that. And I have two daughters. And again, when it was more of an issue when they were younger, but it's definitely hard to resist it. And because there's 8 nights of Hanukkah as opposed to just one day of Christmas, it's hard to limit the sort of consumerism that has crept into Hanukkah. Plus, my younger daughter's birthday is at the end of November, which means that she gets gifts for her birthday at the end of November. And then often 2 weeks later, there's another expectation that she's going to get gifts. So we've been trying to over the years, we try to focus more on having festive foods, treats, and really not focus on the presents. What we do is that at least one of the nights during Hanukkah, we make it a focus on charity night, and that we either collect the solicitations that we've gotten from organizations during the year, and each of us in the family choose one of them, and we give to that organization online. So we make that the focus of that one night of Hanukkah, and otherwise just focus on either a small present for one night during the week, and otherwise just focus on the sort of food and family aspect of it, so we don't get overwhelmed with the gift giving aspect.
Yeah. No, it's really great. And it was really interesting to hear. I don't think it's a surprise, and we're going to hear it from some of the other ILAs that you're going to hear from in a second. There's some themes here around where time with family is important. And we can really get into trouble if it becomes around spending, because that can be hard on our budgets too. And so it's a values decision, but it also reflects probably some good logical budget decision to be thinking this way too. I realized there was something else that came up in our conversation, but we're going to be talking to the next ILAs about the other holiday expectations that come up around holiday cards and decorating our houses and a lot of holiday activities. We have Katherine Drake and Barbara Ashby with us now. And I had asked them to think a little bit about, there are so many other things that can take up our time during the holidays. And you're going to hear some of their wisdom around what they've learned to be smarter about this. Barbara, share some wisdom.
One of the first things we found about something else was birthdays. And Susan had just alluded to end of November. And in our group talking, we discovered that all of us have children, and in my case, a grandchild with December birthdays. So the first sort of rule of thumb for keeping sanity around expectations for those with holiday dates, in this case, Christmas, was to plan and prioritize the birthday celebrations first, and then worry about what was going to come for the holidays. And that's a great life skill. It's a work-life integration skill. So allowing yourself the space to anticipate the future, but stay in the present with what was important first. And then simplification was a theme for us. And our colleague Kimberly talked about the importance and the realization of balancing what the adults in the family might need and want with the expectations and the importance for the kids, and that special joy and excitement that children get out of the holidays that could be work to parents. And so that led to this importance of communicating, of what matters most to each of the family members, and then building your traditions and practices around those values. Really, what are your family values for the holiday? In our family, I now have decades, so we went through what we did as our family, and that evolved. And then now I have grandchildren. And I think the takeaway has been to be flexible and hold on to the importance of traditions, but tweak, morph, do whatever. So one of the things we began with having numerous grandchildren all quickly going through infant toddler stage was the craziness around a big tree and the child in the ornaments and pulling down. So we began getting live potted trees, little table size for each child, and getting sets of decorations and letting them pick and choose, and everyone decorates their own tree. And we have either put them all in one big mound on a table, or we've scattered them around the house. And that has now become my oldest granddaughter the other day just asked if we were going to have the little trees again. And then also building in experiences. So this ties a little into gift giving, but putting the resources towards having family experiences. This has also helped with decorating. So we will go and do drive-arounds to look at other lights. In 2 weeks, we're actually going to a nearby botanical garden that does a winter wonderland in the evening. So we'll see the lights, and we're going to stay at a hotel nearby. And so I really think we've learned this idea of what's important, how do you communicate, and maybe Katherine can talk about the card part of communication as well, and then balancing.
And what I hear in your story, Barbara, too, and it's hard to imagine when you have little ones at home, that things keep on changing as everybody gets older. And so sometimes a tradition happens for 10 years in a row because that age group is just right. And then you get to a little bit of a later age and you have to flex again because things keep on shifting. And what I'm reading between the lines, it sounds like you and your husband were probably very good at talking about this and thinking about this and coming up with what are your common values and then kind of making those things happen. So that teamwork probably helped you come up with a plan. I want to say one last thing. Absolutely, this idea of activities instead of gifts is a thing we did in our household too. I think it really makes a big difference. It's a way to really, it's a twofer. You're having that fun family time instead of just adding one more gift to the experience. Anything you want to add, Barbara, before we switch to Katherine?
I might just add the activities plays into the decorating as well.
Yes.
So my in-laws always had the tradition of making gingerbread houses with our daughters. And so we have carried that on. And so we just have a rip-roaring messy time with the royal icing and all kinds of candy. And they all make their individual gingerbread houses, and those become part of the decorations, either at our house or at their house. And the other thing has been wreath making. So crafts are really important to us. And so we'll either make wreaths on our own. This year, we're making wreaths with a local nature group, nature explorers that they're part of at a regional park. And those become the decorations. So I think part of flexing over time, was letting go of the look, like how professional does it have to be, and just going with homemade fun, made with love, and it simplifies, and it really it generates a real closeness in doing this process of what the holiday is all about.
Yeah, it's about doing it together, not the house and garden version looking experience.
That's
so
the
wonderful
perfect word. Yeah.
Katherine, you have some tips too, or some experiences to share.
Exactly what I was going to say. When December feels very overwhelming with all the expectations, and it's time to think about how to scale back what we do, we really focus in on the things that bring us joy and bring us together as a family. So decorating the tree is one of those things that we pull out the ornaments and they remind us of where we bought them. We usually buy ornaments when we go out on trips, and we surprise the kids every year with an ornament that we purchased we try to sneak it while they're with us, so that each ornament has a memory associated with it. So those are the kinds of things we want to keep doing every year. And when we feel like we need to scale back, we just try to let go of those activities that don't have the same, effect of bringing us together as a family. So, and we were going to talk about Christmas cards too, and the tradition of getting cards. It's been a way to keep in touch with family and friends, and without those cards, we always enjoy getting the cards and seeing what people are up to. So even though it can be hectic, we found that if we plan ahead as much as possible, keep our address lists, organized throughout the year, pick out pictures as we go through the year, we can get those out and write a personal note on them so that they, again, have a little more meaning for us as a family. And it's a meaningful activity. So I guess overall, I would say that we've really focused in on those things that bring us the most joy and bring us together as a family. And highlight those things.
That's great. And actually, one of the other participants of our ILA Friday group is named Jana, and I got permission to share one of the ways that she creatively got her family involved with a Christmas tradition. They used to do a family calendar, and now her girls are teenagers, and so they are in charge of the family calendar. And as Jana said, sometimes I wouldn't pick the pictures that they picked, but I'm not doing the family calendar anymore. And so I think it's another great way where we can start saying, how do we get our children to, as they get older, get more involved with some of these activities and planning, which is a really lovely thing to see happen, that they want to, and they are excited to do that. Well, thank you.
They help with the Christmas cards, putting the stamps on and the labels, and they've always been able to do that. So that's another good family activity.
Wonderful. That's super. I'm really glad to hear that.
Again, I could just jump on that with the idea of flexibility. I've taken liberty with holiday season so that they're not even Christmas cards, that it's perfectly okay to write them out after Christmas, even into that first week in January. And it's winter greetings, that time to stay in touch. So a little bit of self-kindness.
Fabulous. I knew that my ILA group would have be chock full of ideas about how to bring more joy, less stress to the holidays. Where we're going next is the idea of what we've touched on a little bit, that sometimes some of those things that we've done year after year turn into great family traditions, maybe even some family traditions we want to keep doing or not doing. So I'm going to introduce a couple more ILAs to share their wisdom on how they're doing that. So again, full of great information, lots of wisdom from the work that they bring in their lives personally. We have Judy Hughes and Carol Hoffman sharing a few more ideas, some of our wonderful ILAs at ThirdPath Institute. I love this one in particular, family traditions. I'm just going to share a quick one beforehand, just to give you a sense of perspective. In my family growing up, stockings were really important, Christmas stockings. And so we did them as little kids. And when my kids were little, we did stockings. But now my kids are 32 and 26. And so a couple of years ago, I realized I wasn't enjoying Christmas stockings anymore. It felt like work as opposed to fun. And so I just spoke up to my family and said, hey, it's time for us to come up with a new approach around Christmas, because stockings were always a big, important part. And we're still working it out about what exactly our new approach is going to be. But they're old enough to be part of that decision. And I recognized I wasn't happy. I wasn't having more joy. And that's what the holidays are about. So I just wanted to put that one in first, that sometimes traditions need to change. They've been working well for a long time, and then they need to change. Judy, how about you? What have you learned?
Yeah, I think traditions for me is about things to look forward to, things that we can all count on as a family and just some time together. And I think one of the traditions that I have cherished most over time is one that really was my aunt that started when I was young. When I was a teenager, I used to go over her house, and I'd invite a friend, she'd invite a friend, we'd get a pizza, and we make cookies, holiday cookies. Sometimes I would go over 2 days, then it was like 3 days, and we roll out and we decorate, and then we box them up and put things on, and we give them to people. It was so much fun, but it was tiring, and but we're so accomplished when we were done. So I wanted to do something like that as I got older, and so when my kids were little, they'd invite a friend, I'd invite a friend. And we'd start making cookies together. And over time, it's a lot different when you're an adult, energy-wise, and you got other things going on and kids' attention span. And so rolling the cookies, and sometimes they would break. And then, the thing of how many people, oh my gosh, how many people in the office do I have to give these to? It did get a little bit stressful. And I think over the time, come to realize that it's not so much the cookies themselves, it's the time. It's what it means to us. It's making something together, it's creating it. So it's always been fun, but now, it's a little more low key. So my friend and I, my girlfriend and I, we're going on over a decade of doing this together. So now it's more about okay, we always have something that you just throw in the refrigerator that doesn't be cooked. And then we have some that you don't even, no hands on, you just cut, boom, done. And then there's a few that we get really messy and really into, and then everybody can decorate whatever way they want to. And we don't even give individual gifts anymore at work, or some of the people. I'll bring a tray in, and they share, and it's fun. They can say, oh, look at that crazy one that's broken, or that's rainbow colored, because that's just how, we wanted to do it. And it is what it is. And then we eat half of them, So it's more about the experience, I think, and evolving it over time. And my kids still like to invite a friend. I still enjoy time with my friend. She's been making shirts for us this year with her Cricut machine. But that's something we really look forward to, but we've evolved over time to really be the meaning and the purpose of what it's all about, but still keep the tradition alive and going now over, 2 generations.
Wow. I love the way it's evolved to focus on the fun. Talk about more joy, less stress. And so cool to think about how you could do cookies in a few different ways so that it becomes not so time intensive, but more fun intensive. That's really smart. And just a tray of cookies for the whole office. Brilliant. Love it.
Yeah.
How about you, Carol? What have you learned around traditions?
Well, so, I come from various family traditions, and as an adult, and provided tradition for my son. But now I have a 2-year-old granddaughter, and I'm started last year. I'm in the process of creating tradition. So that's a different way, a different approach, and one that would take some of the stress off of my working son and daughter-in-law. So, I do some more of the work, which, can only be helpful to them. And because right now I'm retired from full-time work, I'm a consultant, so I have the time and flexibility. So, so the tradition, so I'm Jewish, and though my son was raised with a lot of the tradition, he's not necessarily that interested in passing it on, but doesn't object. And his wife is not Jewish. So I'm for Hanukkah this year, hoping, and of course that whole family has COVID right now. So We haven't done a lot of future planning yet, but my goal is that we would be together and we would light the menorah candles, and she's old enough now to sort of be interested in help with making latkes. And I will give, we will do gifts and play with the dreidel, and sing songs. So I'm hoping to do all of that in one evening. But I don't live with them, so I can't create a tradition for 8 days. I can maybe see if I can provide them with what they need to do it for the next 7 days after the first night. And I will offer that. So it's about finding and creating tradition, even if it's not particularly original tradition, it's nothing unique to our family, but doing it in such a way that it helps the working generation, and provides this kind of memories and experience for my granddaughter.
Oh, it's beautiful. Really wonderful. I love that on so many levels, because of that whole point that you're making, that it is about time. These holidays do require some time. So you're really stepping in and helping with time. And as soon as you said that, that's my favorite part. My kid's favorite part was lighting the candles for Hanukkah. And we also had a latke night where we had friends over. So you've hit two of the favorite things in our family household, that you're going to be capturing for this 2-year-old and setting up for that child to experience in a positive way. So really, really lovely. Hey, so you've been hearing a bunch of ideas. This doesn't happen magically, right? They make it sound like holidays happen magically. They just happen. You suddenly have the tree, you suddenly have the gifts, you suddenly have figured out how to take time off. It takes planning to make this work. So stay tuned. We're going to share a couple of thoughts about planning. All right. Are you feeling smarter? Because I am. This has really been fun to listen to everybody's thoughts about how to make these holidays more joyful, less stressful. And the last part is about planning. And I know it doesn't sound like holidays when I say what I'm about to say, but I had a list. I pulled it out just after Thanksgiving. And I sat down with my husband after the kids were asleep. And I said, okay, it's holiday time. How are we going to get through these holidays with more joy and less stress? And here are the things we have to do. And so we got very smart about, some people would, he do some parts of it, I do some parts of it. We also did this thing where we pick a couple afternoons where we would take off work early, go shopping during the middle of the week, totally avoided shopping on the weekends. And it just somehow, when we went together, it made it so much more fun. Sometimes if it was a quick errand, one of us would sit in the car, the other one run in and get the thing done. But I just felt like it wasn't me who was solving the holidays. It was us solving the holidays. And that by itself made my holidays much more joyful and much more fun. So Judy, you had a planning tip. Then we're going to hear from Heather and then Barbara. Judy, tell us what your planning tip was.
So I was for mine. So I'm in an interfaith relationship. And so for us, the planning early on, it wasn't so much when it was just us, but when we started having kids, it was having discussion of what was important to us. Because Hanukkah was very important to me, though my family does enjoy Christmas traditions always. Then I came to realize that certain things were not so important to him. So for us, it was planning the things that did mean a lot, like visiting family and some of those things. So we made sure those were the things that that were emphasized and really we could both bring to fruition, instead of just getting caught up in hoping things would happen or looking what everybody else was doing. We said, what do we want to do? So like you said, candles and latkes are important to us, and some decorating was important, but not as much for him. So we don't spend a lot of time doing that. So it's really just taking the time to talk about where do we want to focus our energy and our resources and our time, and what kind of things are important to us. So I made some assumptions at first, and having that discussion and planning ahead made it much more enjoyable. So the things that we really wanted to spend time, we did.
Yeah, key word there. You really worked at avoiding assumptions and instead getting focused on what really mattered to both of you. Heather, actually, you might have another thing you want to share, but I want to make sure you talk about something we mentioned before when we were talking off camera about how you are really intentional. There's so many holiday activities that you can participate in, and you have an approach to those holiday activities that I want everybody to learn about. So you can tell your other planning tip too, but tell them that one. It's a good one.
Okay, so full disclaimer, I'm the least festive person in this group. My approach over the years, and it's just been, I think, whittling down what we want or I want, is that I don't want to be tired and exhausted and running between things and stopping on the way to grab more cookies that nobody wants. So I show up empty-handed, and then I hand my host nothing, and I say, I'm coming empty-handed, and I'm hoping next time you come to my house, you come empty-handed, because I literally don't want more stuff. We plan about a year in advance for the holidays to go avoid the holidays. So we've started, we're Jewish also, so we've started traveling during that time of year with another Jewish family. They do not do gifts. They do not do festive either. So we're really minimalist. So I can show up at people's parties and just enjoy their friendship and their company. And I've sort of almost gotten over the guilt of coming empty-handed, or grab a bottle of wine because we have plenty around here to grab. Just something simple and easy. And I find it so relieving of all the stress, because when it gets down to it, all you've talked about is spending time with people. And you can do that around cookies, you can do that around gifts, or you could just do that. So we've become very minimalistic, and sometimes I worry about the loss of traditions. And Barbara, you made a great point about why not find out what other people in the family want to do with traditions. But I love my minimalist approach that I've been practicing a few years. Still trying to get over the guilt of not doing all the stuff, but it's really less exhausting and more fun for me.
Yeah, no, I think it's actually quite lovely and liberating. So thank you for that one. Barbara, one last planning tip, and then we're going to wrap it up.
I like the minimalist idea. I think I've been moving in that direction. Certainly with not having the house and home and garden environment, but I would say a partnership in our household as well. And we looked at each other's skill sets and interests. So my husband loves to cook, and he's quite happy doing all of the shopping. So he takes over all things food, which is fantastic for me, because I'd rather be the one setting up the house, doing what decorating we do. I'm a consummate researcher. I love to find out what's out there. So what kind of experiences can we go have? And so we trade off, and neither one of us feels excessively tapped that way. And, I was thinking back to ThirdPath work-life skills of like setting boundaries. So don't overplan, and flex, leave space for just breathing and for something that may come up, or that no one feels like doing this time around.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. That is all so good. As I suspected, you get the picture. Join our ILA community if you're interested. If you're a work-life coach out there trying to help couples think about these issues, if you're a career counselor trying to help young parents think in new ways about how they can approach their work, if you're an HR professional and you want to bring some of these ideas to your organization, we want you to join our ILA community. In the meantime, we all want to wish you happy holidays.